Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. The program in which you're about to listen to is called Can We Talk?
I'm Charles Scott Jr. You're watching us. He says listeners, but how you guys doing today? This is another episode of Can We Talk? As you know, we come to you weekly and we talk about real estate, business, what's going around in our area, which is the Fairfield County area. But, we tell you to tune in. If you do miss us, go online to Facebook, TikTok, look at the clips we have there. And always remember, you can always give us a call, number right there.
Today we're going to talk about some of the things that are currently happening in the real estate market. Recently there's been a lot of things that have been happening, a lot of changes, a lot of price fluctuations.
Yes.
The economy, as we're all in, has a lot of fluctuations that are going on, and inflation and interest rates and people purchasing and selling. So, the information that we give you, we hope is very useful to you. We also encourage you to have your friends and relatives, tune in. And we come to you every week with this television program. My son and I, we've been in business going in for, I've been out there for over 40 years. This is actually my 40th year. I should have a 40th year anniversary.
Right? Everyone should buy one house this year as a celebration for the 40th anniversary. That's what I would think. But I just want to say, the week before, we had an in-person home seminar. Usually they go over Zoom since COVID, but we had an in-person seminar. And a lot of people came out. So you see, people are still buying houses. People are out here asking questions, and we're here to answer those questions.
Yeah, there was over 35 people.
Yeah, 35 people.
That came to that informational session, home buying class. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of interest, and a lot of people want to buy. And I always tell everybody, a lot of the interest is always generated because the rents are increasing.
Yes.
And the rents are increasing where actually before, and it's more of a shock to a person who hasn't rented in the last probably 10 years. People come in, and if you've been out there and you're with your landlord right now and you've been there 8 or 9 years and everything, and things are going along pretty good, the landlord ends up selling the house. That's the biggest
Yes.
in other words, reason that most people come to us. And I always ask them, I said, what happened? What changed in your life? And they'll say, well, the landlord sold the house and the new people want to move in. Maybe it's a person that bought the house, he wants to move his family into the house. So if you've never been out there in the rental market in the last, even 3 or 4 or 5 years, you're probably going to be in for a shock.
I get those calls every day. People call me. Even as soon as people have been renting right before COVID, 2019, the whole rental industry has changed. I'll say it's the industry now. Whereas before, you may be able to get an apartment, show up with the money, a couple pay stubs, they let you in, but now they want to do a credit check. They want 2 months security. Mm-hmm. They may call your previous landlord or your previous landlord. They want to make sure that you're going to be a sure bet because, eviction is always an expensive task.
So there's a lot of different changes that are occurring, even with the laws in the state of Connecticut, which we won't go into because right now there are bills, but there's a lot of changes that may take place within the next couple of months, depending upon which ones make it through the the legislature committees, and then they go up and they get voted on, and for the governor to sign. But there's a lot of it has to do with landlord-tenant relationships. So just want to prepare you that there's no longer the status quo. So if you are renting, it's best that you start looking into the possibility of purchasing a property.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time because they're seeing some of these rents are like as much as a mortgage, if not more, because you're seeing people from, obviously New York coming into Bridgeport and people coming from New Jersey into Bridgeport. They're used to paying a little bit higher than what we're used to. So rents are going to be matching that. And with these new landlords coming from New York also, they're buying these houses at 7% interest rates, which is causing them to have to increase the rents. Remember, your old landlord might have bought the house in the 80s, 90s. He may not even have a mortgage. That's why you call him a good landlord, because he's not increased your rent in like 10 years.
And we're in a unique situation, right here. We're in Fairfield County, which actually, we service all of the different counties. Mm-hmm. If you come to us, we call ourselves Tri-State Realty. We don't have offices really in those states, but we have associates that we can refer you to in New Jersey, New York, even Massachusetts. If you are relocating to those areas, you can come in and talk to us, and we can make some phone calls, have someone even meet you when you go up to those areas and start taking you out and showing you different properties.
Yes.
So there's a lot of changes that are occurring. If you're coming into the office right now, or if you set up an appointment with us, you may have a property and you may want to list that property or sell that property, and you have no idea what that property is selling for. So today, I want to talk a little bit about, selling properties, listing properties, because there's a lot of people out there now that are sitting on the sidelines and they're saying, what do I do? Do I sell my property? Do I rent it? Do I move to another area? So now is an excellent time if you're looking to sell your property, because there's a supply and demand, and right now the supply is low and the demand is still high. So
Yes.
It's an excellent time if you're looking to put your house on the market, if you're looking to sell your property, and to get the top dollar. We advertise, we get top dollar for your house.
Yeah, I will say the past couple of weeks I've been to about maybe 4 open houses. They're all packed. People are still coming out in droves to look at these houses if they're priced accordingly also. And what they're doing is they're looking at these houses and they're having, their families come down, their uncles, aunts, because what they're going to do is they may turn that house, for example, if it's a 3-family, into a multi-generational house. The parents live on the first floor, grandparents second, third floor, maybe niece or uncle, something like that. But what we're seeing now a lot now in this area.
The other thing I wanted to, when we talk about listing properties for sale, one of the things that we're finding out is that the reverse mortgages are coming due on a lot of the properties out there. And you may know of someone who has a reverse mortgage, or you yourself, may have a reverse mortgage. And how that works is like a lot of these reverse mortgages, as people get older, they, go into a hospital or they go into a convalescent home. And the people left behind, they have an option. And one of those options is to put the property up for sale. Mm-hmm. And not only that, a lot of people think, well, since with a reverse mortgage, the person that lived there did not have to pay the mortgage all those years. Nope. And the only thing they had to do was keep up the taxes, the water, and the sewer. So when they move out of the property, one of the options is you could sell the property. Mm-hmm. Usually in the past, what happened is, that really was sort of like an equal trade-off, because
So you give it back to the company.
Give it back to the mortgage company, or actually they actually have an option to just take the property back. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't really make that much, because if you sold the property, you owed the reverse mortgage company more than what the property was worth. But now it's just the opposite, because in some cases the property value has gone up so high.
Yes.
You can not only have enjoyed the benefit of not having to pay the mortgage all those years, but you don't have to give the property back to the mortgage company, because you can sell the property as long as they get what's owed them. You can keep the balance. Mm-hmm. The children or whoever it may be can keep the balance. So you may want to look at that again. Maybe you looked at it 2-3 years ago, it didn't work. But since the prices have gone up or the values have gone up, if you have a reverse mortgage, it may be in your interest, for that person, if they no longer qualify by living in the house, to sell the house and then pay off and we've done quite a few of those recently.
Say that. This is a rare time in history where people have taken out reverse mortgages, I'll say as soon as 2015, 16. What they're realizing is the houses have appreciated so much that, if time does come where you have to sell the house, you still have money left over to possibly buy a down payment on another house. And you really see that with the reverse mortgages. Usually the reverse mortgage eats the house. And that's the reason they sign up for it. So they don't have to pay any payments, they pay taxes, and at the end, they may want to leave the house too, they leave it to the company. But we're seeing a change in that.
One of the other things is we find people have a mortgage with this company called Mr. Cooper.
Oh yeah, the balloon payment.
It's a balloon payment. Maybe when they got the mortgage years ago, they got one mortgage, which is a 30-year mortgage, and then they got an additional mortgage, which after 10 years, you owe all the money back. In other words, it's only a 10-year mortgage. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that 10 years, if you don't pay them back all the money you borrowed, then they can foreclose on the property because it's called what they call a balloon mortgage, meaning you got the house, but within that 10-year, maybe you owe $200,000 on your main mortgage and $50,000 on the extra mortgage
Yes.
that you got. Well, the main mortgage may be okay because you got 30 years to pay it back. But on the second mortgage, you only have 10 years to pay it back. So now they want their money. So you can refinance the house, or either you can sell the house, but they want their money back. And so a lot of times people forget, that,
Well, what happens? People don't open the envelope. If I saw Mr. Cooper, I got a mortgage with this bank. What's Mr. Cooper? People ignore that until they realize they're being sent, court orders to go to court. They're, being foreclosed on.
So these are some of the scenarios and some of the things that we're running into
Yes.
recently with a lot of the different mortgage companies out there. And it's going to be more so because a lot of these people, did these things 5 and 10 years ago that are coming due now. So, but the main thing, like my son just said, open the letters, don't run from the mortgage companies, get in touch with them. And, give us a call. You can come down and sit down. You can talk to us. Find out, what we can possibly do to help you. We're not lawyers, but we can refer you to certain people that would be able to assist you.
Yes, 'cause think about it. He's been doing it for 40 years. We've been doing it for 16 years. We've seen a lot of situations, very unique situations, where people come into our office doom and gloom, and they leave smiling. They say, "Wait, I could sell the house and possibly get this much." It's very true. So give us a call. We can explain your situation to us. I think we've seen everything. I think there's no situation we haven't seen. But remember, it's real estate. There's certain rules to it, and we've been practicing those rules for years.
Yeah, we had a recent gentleman, no names mentioned, but his mother had passed away, and he had a reverse mortgage. He wasn't even aware that she had a reverse mortgage, but he was getting letters saying that the bank was going to foreclose on the property because she was no longer there, and they gave him some options, and one of the options was to pay off the money that she had received all those years, which actually is over $300 and some thousand, because as long as she's alive, they would be forgiving the mortgage payments. They would actually be making the mortgage payments for her. So every month that came due, she didn't have to make the mortgage payment. They would send in the money.
Exactly.
And the deal was that in the case that she passed away, they would get the house. Then they would have an option to get back their money, or he could pay it back now, which he didn't know what to do. So we ended up selling the house, and he actually, after all expenses, had over almost like $200,000.
Yeah, enough money to put a down payment or buy a condo cash, I'll say.
Right. Because he ended up with over $200,000 after paying off the bank that had forwarded all of that money. So, and this is something he wasn't even aware of. He was actually coming in just trying to figure out how long he had to stay in the house, and was going to move and get nothing. That was perfectly okay with him.
Right back to the board company.
He just needed more time to move. And I says, well, why not try and sell the house? And that way there you can pay them off and you will get money because you are the only heir. You inherit the house if it's paid for.
I also want to mention in that situation, remember, tell your elders, tell people that own property, if you quit claim something to someone and you have a mortgage note on there, you still have to pay that mortgage note. The person, let's say you die, they don't forgive the debt's still attached to the mortgage, to the house. So even though you quit claiming it to them, they can still foreclose and get the house back. Some people think that's a trick. You can't trick the bank. The bank knows where the house is at.
Speaking of quit claim, in other words, like I said, we're not lawyers and we don't claim to be, but some simple real estate terms, and this is a situation where a person quit claimed a house, half of the house, to another person. And when you quit claim, that means you're giving someone interest in your house. So if you say, okay, I'm going to quit claim half the house to you, you own 50% of the house. And then they end up getting in an argument, and then they said, well, I want to take back what I gave you. Well, that's very difficult to do. You can give somebody something. It's not like, losers, weepers. You go back and take it. I want my bicycle back. Give it back. Give me.
You can't erase their name. Their name's on there. They're equal partner. They're your partner at this point.
Yeah.
You can't do things without their signature. They own half the house equally.
Yeah,
Even though they
well-
didn't put money into it, you put their name on there.
Whatever percentage you gave me, so they're on the deed. So you can't go back in the city hall and say, you know, this person's name that I put on there, take their name off. They're gonna look at you like, we can't do that. You know, you better get a lawyer. So be careful of some of the things that you do. And I get a lot of calls like that, and people don't understand of what's happening. Also, when you do something like that, it all will have ramifications with that person whose name you put down there
Oh, yeah.
and getting a mortgage. People don't understand that. People go and like even when co-signing, in other words, they're co-signing or putting their name on a deed to help someone get a mortgage, and it sounds good. And then that person says, well, okay, I helped you out. Now I'm going to go buy my own house. And then they go to buy their own house, and the bank says, well, you already own a house. I said, what do you mean? Well, you were on the mortgage or on the deed with this other person. So now that makes it hard for you to go out and buy a house when you've already put your name on somebody else's mortgage. You're trying to help that person out, but remember, that's going to hurt your chance to buy a house in the future. Unless you can afford to pay for, you got a big enough income to pay for all the houses.
They're going to think you have to pay 2 mortgages. Even if your friend or associate is paying the entire mortgage, the fact your name is on it, they're just assuming you're paying half the mortgage, if not all of it also. So they have to incorporate that debt into your new pre-approval, so it can be pre-approved for a lot less. So be very careful before you sign up for any of that stuff. And also, it's going to disqualify you for all these first-time home buyer programs, because they're going to say, you're already a home buyer, you're a homeowner, we don't qualify for these programs.
That's another thing. You just hit on that. And like we're telling you things that happen to us every day and every week. We come here today and we talk about some of the things that happen, daily occurrences where people come into the office. Like you just said, I have a couple that came into the office and they wanted to buy a house as a first-time home buyer. And so, in this business that we're in, we got to ask a lot of questions because people don't tell us things, and it's not because they don't want us to know, but they feel as though that has nothing to do with anything. Like sometimes they even say, well, what's that got to do with anything? I didn't tell you about that because it has nothing to do with it. Well, guess what? That has everything to do with it. Because if you're looking to come into the office and you say, yeah, I heard about this first-time home buyer program, and I want to take advantage of it because, I want to buy a house. And I say, okay, well, do you own a house? Well, I have a house, but that's in North Carolina. And that's down in North Carolina. And that was a house that my mother gave me. And I said, well, you paid her. Well, yeah, I gave her some money, and so therefore my name is on the deed. So you're not a first-time home buyer because your mother, you paid her for that house down there, right? Well, yeah, but that's in another state. It has nothing. Well, I said, well, when they pull your credit, will they see, did you get a mortgage? She said, yeah, I got a slight mortgage. So I said, so when they pull your credit, it's going to show, because the credit goes in all 50 states. It doesn't just stay to what you did in Connecticut. So your credit report, whether it's TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, that's all 50 states.
It's going to show up.
It's going to show, oh, you got a mortgage. So that disqualifies you from participating as a first-time home buyer. Because you could technically, you're not homeless, you got a house you can go live in.
Your own property, your name's on a deed.
They want to help people that are out here that never ever bought a house before. And said, and I said, well, in some of those programs, however, there is an exclusion.
Yes.
First-time home buyers, as long as you don't own a home now. You could have owned a house in the past.
Oh, yeah.
So if you sell that house,
years have passed,
and then you could come back in and qualify again as a first-time home buyer. That's what a lot of people out here don't realize. So that's something maybe many of you out there just found out. If you have a house and you sell that house, a lot of the programs, you can come back in as a first-time. Some have a waiting period. You have to have not owned a house within a certain amount of time.
3 years or something like that.
But some of them have no waiting period. As long as you sell that house, you can come back in and qualify again. So there's...
People don't realize that. Because I've had classes I've taught. People bought houses, then they come back and they're back in the class to get the certification for the first time home buyer certificate. And I said, I thought you owned the house. Oh yeah, sold that one or lost that one. Remember, people don't realize there's second chances in this industry. People have gone through foreclosure, repaired their credit a couple of years, and bought another house. It's not the end all be all. There's always a second chance, I'll say, in this real estate industry. If you clean up your credit and get back on track, you can become a first-time home buyer again. I'll say many first-time home buyers aren't first-time home buyers. They're second and third. Isn't that something?
Yeah, it's like I tell everybody, you got to learn the rules and go abide by the rules. If you know the rules, then you can qualify for all different types of programs that may be out there. So there's what we're telling you is some of the things that we know. And you have many people out there that have misconceptions. So you may have friends out there that, like I said, want to sell their house, but they don't know where to go or how to go about it. And we sit down, the first step we do is give them an idea of what is the house worth? What's how much in today's market? And a lot of people might go and look it up, Zillow, or
I've said in previous episodes, Zillow, Redfin, TrulyRealestate.com. The thing is, they're giving you an estimate, an algorithm, surrounding area, what the sales are. Your house may be very unique. You may have a jacuzzi tub in the bath. You may have a finished lower level. Zillow's not inside your house looking at these upgrades, which can affect the price.
Sometimes, and it works both ways. Sometimes they may evaluate your house much higher than it is actually worth.
Oh, yeah.
So what we do is we are looking at it and we compare it to what the comparables are. What did the houses in your area sell for? And it could be a big difference between one side of the city and another side of the city.
Very true.
You may have added a lot of things to that house that even the Zillow or the algorithms or the computer doesn't even know about. You may have added a finished lower level. You may have put in remodeled baths and kitchens, new roof. All of these things will completely increase the value.
Upgrade the kitchen. A lot of things that Zillow doesn't see. I see some houses Zillow has them priced at this. But I look at a house next door on my MLS, which is the multiple listing service, and it's sold for about 30% more. I go off my comparables because I know Zillow is, like I said, it's a marketing company. It's not a real estate company. They market to realtors.
So, in other words, as I was saying before, we're concentrating on if you're looking to sell a house, we can market that particular property for you. Some of the things that we do, look at what's happening right here. If you're watching this program, this is one of the things that we have. We have exposure. We have the knowledge. We teach classes. We actually do a newsletter. We're sending out letters to people, informing them of what's going on. We belong to a lot of the organizations and the associations. I used to be president of the Bridgeport Board of Realtors and the New Haven Waterbury Board of Realtors. So I have a lot of knowledge in the real estate industry. I basically still serve as a director for the Connecticut Association of Realtors. But more than that, we keep up with all of the new laws and all of the new things and all of the new trends to be able to advise you, to give you as much information as possible pertaining to the real estate market. And also with my son, he's out there every day. And we do this also, which is more important, full-time. There's a lot of part-time people out there. This is what we do.
I was teaching the class last week, and I was telling them a lot of agents play real estate. They go to a regular job in the morning. They can only show you houses on their schedule in the afternoon. We work with a lot of, I'll say, medical professionals that work overnight. They can only see houses in the morning or in the afternoon. They may not find an agent that fits their, schedule or accommodations. So give us a call. We're 24-hour agents. We'll show you houses up until maybe 8 o'clock.
Hours.
8 o'clock at night. I think it's the latest I've ever showed a house.
24 hours.
You might have been 9:30. I remember one time. Remember that one in Danbury?
Oh, in the rain.
In the rain.
That was a client they had been looking for a house.
They had to see it that night, right?
And the thing about it was that I remember I was in Bridgeport that night, and it was a pastor. His wife was a nurse, worked at a hospital, and he was a pastor at a church in New York, and they'd been looking for houses. And he called me up and it was like 9 o'clock. It was pouring down rain. And he's like, this house just came on the market. Can we see this house? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God.
Must have been the highest and best or something the next
Yeah,
day.
they had to see it. So I says, oh, okay, we'll go see it. I drove all the way, got on the highway, Route 8 to Route 7, all the way to Danbury, around the mountains, up the hills in the rain. We got there, and basically, luckily, the lights were on.
Yeah, right. Electricity was a.
We go inside, and the agent said, oh, yeah, the lights are on, just go and look at it. And, we were in there, it's pouring down rain, went up all the steps. They loved the house.
They put an offer in? What happened?
They put an offer in, and they were successful, and they ended up buying that house. So you never know.
How about that?
You never know.
That house, and that was during COVID, the height, like
That was the height of
2021,
COVID. Yeah,
2022.
They're still in that house. Because
Still in the
as a
house.
matter of fact, I was just thinking about him today because he called me a couple of weeks ago, and he was looking to possibly get into some investment property.
Yeah,
to
look,
buy an
look at
investment
the equity
property.
the house has gone in the last 3 years alone.
But-
so just let you know, no other agent's gonna do that for you.
No, I don't know. It might be rare and in between. But the thing I pride myself in, and I was thinking, is that we try to go out when nobody else goes out. Now, how many other? One advantage I thought about that night is I said, now what other real estate agent's going to be out here showing this house at night? I said, so therefore we have an in. And it was true. In other words, we looked at that house and put the offer in. I used to always go to houses in the winter, dead in the winter, and people say, oh, you're going to go out? I says, yeah. And I would love it when I got to the house and the snow would be about 2 feet of snow and no footprints.
Yep.
I'd say, oh, great. That means that we're the first
We're the
ones.
first ones in there.
And you get inside and you look at the house and it's nice and everything, and we end up putting an offer in it. So, we go to step above and beyond. And if you, with Tri-State Realty, like my son said, we do this full time. This is what we do.
And I also mention one more thing as far as that goes. What you also see is a lot of agents don't own the company. He owns the company. So that means
That's right.
he can do things other agents can't. I mean, to see a property at 9:30, that agent probably would have to call corporate, call his broker, get back to you, be 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we can go see it tomorrow night now.
That's right.
So he can make decisions on a whim because he owns the company.
We have control.
Yes.
I've owned the company for 40 years. So therefore, you're dealing. And a lot of times, people call and say, "Are you an agent?" I said, "I'm the owner of the company." He says, "Yeah, but what company do you? What franchise do you?" I says, "I am the franchise.
Yeah, right. What franchise?
I own Tri-State Realty. I am the owner, the broker." And I said to someone, "I'm a broker." He says, "Well, who do you work?" I says, "The broker. I own the company. I am the broker. I own the company, and I have agents that work for me."
They couldn't believe it.
So that's what you get when you call, and you get to work with me personally.
Yep, he picks the phone up. Give us
I
a
pick
call.
up the phone. People
Phone
call
number
and
right
say,
there.
"Can I speak to Mr. Scott?" "I am Mr. Scott." "Oh, you?"
Exactly.
So give us a call. That's our number there. My son and I would be glad to help you.
Give us any questions you got.
Until next week, God bless.
Amen.